So we are joined for the third time by my friend Quinn Braboy, civil engineer, project manager with GSA here in Jackson, graduate of Murrah High School, Mississippi State, Jackson State. We thank you so much for joining us today. This is our computer science engineering class. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, including my good friend Angela Jordan over at Shirley Simmons Middle School and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much again for taking some time for us today.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for the invites.
Well, it's always great to have you. So take us back to your background in engineering, because like I talked about it briefly. Murrah High School, Mississippi State, Jackson State. So take us a little bit about your background and how you got into engineering.
Okay, so I kind of start from the beginning, if you want to say. Pretty much, I knew I wanted to do something in math and science early on, like elementary school. Like I was the kid who loved playing with the Legos. You have to look it up, but I love playing with Connects. I have always loved math. I do not, that was just my preference. I did not care for English. I did not care for history or reading, but everyone's different. So early on, my family saw that I was interested in like math and science. So I was introduced into a couple programs. And then I remember the first time I went to kind of like a space camp with my elementary school. It was like a program that we had. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be an astronaut. So that kind of led me into the whole science, engineering, math, technology. Then I kind of honed in. I actually have an uncle who my aunt married, who is a civil engineer. So they got married when I was like 6. So, being a little curious kid that I was, I kind of got interested. I was like, what does he do every day? And found out at one time he did work for MDOT, Mississippi Department of Transportation, and just kind of shadowing him around because I would be around him quite a bit and learn what he did. I was like, oh, it's very interesting. I was like, okay, I like engineering. So fast forward, middle school, high school, still loving math and science. Like I was the kid who took physics and chemistry in one year. That was just my thing. So getting ready to go to college, and I was trying to decide between civil and computer engineering. So went to college. So before I graduated from Murrah, and before I went to Mississippi State, I actually went to a military school. So there I was trying to figure out, let's see, do I want to do computer engineering or civil? So I took my first college computer engineering class, and it was challenging. I had a great professor, but it was not my love. I'm the type, I would try it and say I tried it, and I was like, no, this is not for me. So I did try it. I passed the class and everything, and I realized I really do I want to be a civil engineer. So I stayed at that, stayed at that particular school for 2 years, and I transferred to Mississippi State and finished my undergraduate degree in civil engineering. And while I was at Mississippi State, I did intern with my uncle one summer and got, uh, work experience in civil engineering. So I graduated from Mississippi State, and I actually started working with my uncle at a private consulting firm here in Jackson, downtown Jackson. And I worked there for about 8 years. So while I was there, I learned a lot about project management, civil engineering projects, infrastructure, roads, pretty much anything that deals with civil engineering. And that can be structural. I worked on a renovation of a jail because there has to be, reinforced walls and things like that. I worked on transportation projects as far as bettering roadways. Some, we might have added bike lanes or just so the traffic could go better. So while I was at IMS, that was the name of the firm, I decided to get my master's in civil engineering at Jackson State. And that was a great opportunity. I loved it. I think I enjoyed my master's program more than undergrad because I was taking all the classes that I wanted to take, which was all focused on civil engineering. So I'm just a nerd for civil engineering. So I enjoyed that program, graduated, and then decided to look at different opportunities in the public sector. So after graduating from Jackson State, I worked for the city of Jackson for about almost 4 years. As a public servant, I did enjoy that time because I feel like, I was helping the citizens of Jackson in public works. Then I moved over to the federal government, and interesting enough, I worked for the VA for a year as a general engineer, which is basically project manager of projects that they have at the VA. I learned quite a bit about healthcare engineering. That was very interesting because I think sometimes we don't realize how many projects happen at a hospital or healthcare facility that keeps it running.
Yep.
Then I saw opportunity to become a project manager for GSA. So GSA is also a federal agency, and it stands for General Services Administration. So GSA, we pretty much manage federally owned buildings, such as the courthouse. Like in Jackson, we have the Thad Cochran Courthouse, and then we also have a McCoy Federal Building. So my agency manages that building, and we also help agencies when they're in leased buildings. We do their project management for them. I've been at GSA now a little over a year and a half. I do work hybrid, partly remotely, and I do go into the office one day out of the week. There is some travel with my job. So the way my division or my project group that I'm with, they put Mississippi and Florida together. They call us the Gulf Coast. So I do have Central and Northern Mississippi projects, and I also have Central and Northern Florida projects. So I have projects in
Wow.
Orlando and Jacksonville, and then I have projects here in Jackson, Mississippi, and then also in Aberdeen in North Mississippi. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so with GSA, I would say that I have been introduced, just like at the VA, to more aspects of project management when it comes to construction projects and engineering projects. Just to kind of go over some of the projects that I have an elevator modernization project. I have, which we're basically upgrading the elevators. That's a life safety thing. So that's been really
Wow.
big region. And that has been interesting because I've learned so much about what goes into, upgrading an elevator, such as, elevators have to have each elevator has to have their own dedicated phone line, which makes sense. In case of emergency, if something happens, you have to make sure that people can reach emergency management services. Also, different components when it comes to the elevators. Say you have someone who might have an um, that's ADA and they might can't speak. So we have to have a camera in the elevator so they can communicate with emergency services. Or say they might be unresponsive. The camera is also there so we can see inside the elevator, be like, okay, that person's unconscious, they need help, things like that. So that has been a very interesting job. And I've been working with inspectors and SMEs, that's what we call them, subject matter experts about elevators that have been very open to let me know the process. So it's been interesting. That's been a very interesting project of mine. Also, since I do have projects in Florida, hurricane, repair projects, because weather, we can't predict it. And we do have plenty of government buildings in Florida and they become damaged, mainly like water intrusion, things like that. So I have projects that repair that. So I have a project that's actually about to start in Orlando and I'm working with the court. So that's another thing with GSA. We have plenty of customers and clients that we have to work with. So I do enjoy because I meet so many different people in their different backgrounds, and I have to work with a lot of other agencies too. Those two particular projects, the elevators and the hurricane, they're GSA projects, but I also have projects with like FPS and Homeland Security that are a security project here in Jackson. So, I might be working with the FBI, RIS, different agencies. You never know, because if they call on us for for our services, we're here to work with them and be their project managers.
Absolutely. Now, you did mention something about how sometimes you're hybrid, sometimes you're in the office. But the cool thing about civil engineering is that you get to go out and visit sites and see the projects unfold, see the tangible outcomes of your work. And I know you brag about, you get to wear the hard hat like the guys and go out there and see all the cool things you've done.
I know I have my hard hat with me. It does look kind of shiny and clean, but it has been used quite a bit with GSA. So yes, that's what I do like about being in civil engineering and project manager. I see a project from beginning to end. So I see projects, the design phase. So a lot of times we'll hire architectural engineering firm to design a project for us. For example, I have a project in Jacksonville that we're doing a new tenant build out. So we hired the AE firm to do the design and meet the specifications for that agency for them to move in. And then once the design was done, then we moved on to the process of doing the bids so that we could get a contractor to come in and actually build the project. So right now we are awarding the project for the contractor, and we're about to have a kickoff meeting so they can start their work and we can all be on the same page. And that kickoff meeting, will include all the stakeholders. It will include the agency that we're working with. It will include the building manager. So all of GSA buildings have building managers, the project manager. It'll also include the CO, which is like the contracting officer, the person who handles the money, and anyone else who's needed to be in that meeting.
That's awesome. And I think it's great. And you mentioned a couple of things there, and I've got a good class here, and they've done a great job on our little simple projects we've done in class. But I was explaining how engineers every day have to start over or start at a certain point and fix things, whether it's the type of material, whether it's the temperature, how deep you get in the ground. Certain things are going to work, and you have to figure out a way to make it work. It's you guys never get it right the first time.
Oh, never. We call it like failing forward. So you're basically doing different iterations to get to the outcome that you desire. And I like it because it's like, okay, let's see. Okay, that didn't work, but let's change something. Okay, it works a little better now. Let's change another thing. And you get to the point where you're like, okay, this is the best option for our problem. We're problem solvers. So, we all know, like, even in life, you aren't going to be able to solve a problem the first time around, but you don't give up. So, like, it's failing forward. You're realizing, like, okay, I'm learning and we're getting better with each iteration.
Yeah, and I know you talked about these projects and how you see it from beginning to end. We have a lot of high school kids and a lot of middle school kids that are already saying, "Look, I don't want to go to college," but they can still find a way to find a spot in engineering because you deal with a lot of trade people every day that are have the hands on the project. You may be the one planning and seeing how things are done, but you're not the one out there putting it, doing the work to put it together. So talk about the trade people that you work with and how they're so needed as well on these engineering projects.
Oh, yes, they are a lifeline. So the trade people, I will even go, okay, so before I even talk about a project, sometimes we have operations and maintenance. So O&M. We have O&M guys who actually run our buildings. So it could be something from mechanical, it's hot here. That's one of the issues that we have. We have to make sure our AC is running because we have tenant judges, clients, customers that we don't want uncomfortable in our building. So things from just the maintenance of the building, even electricians, and like for instance, in the McCoy building, which is the building that I actually go into, we have a child care facility that, we have to make sure the lights work properly. We have to make sure. So those are our O&M guys. We depend heavily on them. And also with security, we're, I think, a level 4 or 5, don't quote me on that, secure facility. So therefore, you just can't walk in. We have security. We have someone monitoring the cameras. You have to let us know why you're coming into the building and what you're coming for. Those different trades keep our building running every day. Then when we get to project, so contractors, yes, they are my lifeline. I do not know anything about, say, a chiller replacement. I know that the air needs to work, but I am not a mechanical trade person who knows like how to install a chiller, how to make sure it works correctly, how to make sure it's connected correctly. Those are trades that are very much needed to complete the project. Same as I have a security project with cameras. Just know a camera needs to cut on like this one here. It needs to record and it needs to, connect to our center to let the security know, okay, this person here, we saw them enter this particular door. We have, deliveries coming into the loading dock, things like that. So that's a trade that I have to work with vendors to make sure that, okay, they can install this for me. Thank you so much. I need this project complete. Just, I think about even, okay, again, the elevator project, the adjuster. I don't know anything about adjusting an elevator. I just know elevator needs to go up, down, open the door when I, close the door and things like that. So that is something that I have learned about the different trades that we are very dependent on to make sure that our projects are successful.
Yeah, and I just think that can be emphasized enough because obviously we encourage everybody, all these kids, to consider a career in engineering. But if you don't want to go to college, engineering can find a place for you with these certificates and these trade programs that work side by side with these engineers and make really good money.
Yes, some trades make more than I do. So, it's definitely doing your research and finding what you're interested in and finding that path to be successful in it.
Yeah, and like I said, with all these new technological advances in materials, all these new environmental laws, all these new ADA laws, it is so important to stay on top of that. And you've got to keep you've got to keep up with it too. And you got to find somebody that can install it the right way you do it in the plan. If not, you're back to the drawing board.
Yes, that is correct. Because we, interestingly enough, we had the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. So that is money that we have gotten for projects to basically improve environmentally. So there are certain things like certain asphalts, certain concrete, certain windows that we have to use to install into our buildings or into our parking lots. And also, interesting enough, I have two projects that are dealing with electric vehicles. And
Wow.
we're doing the charging stations. So because we want to, with the government, we want to be accessible for uh different government agencies that are buying electric vehicles. So I want to make sure that we have a space for them to charge their vehicles on our properties.
Absolutely. Now, before I get to the students' questions, the last thing I want to talk about, and we talk about this every time, and I think it's interesting what you said. Even though you love Mississippi State, you said that if you had to do it over, you would have gone to Jackson State first, and then Mississippi State second to get your graduate degree. So, tell us why the HBCU experience could have been so good for you, even though you said Mississippi State was great. You said, "I wish I could have done them in reverse order."
Yes, I think it's more about community and this is one of my favorite words, tribe. So community is more broader than tribe, but definitely when you go to HBC, you have that community network from, and not saying that Mississippi State didn't have a community feel, but I feel like Jackson State had a closer knit community and tribe. You just see, representation matters. So you see someone who looks like you from when you're doing financial aid, getting your money for school, all the way to your professors, to your students in class. Honestly, at Mississippi State, sometimes I was the only Black female in the class, and it was lonely. And of course, I found other people because I am in sorority. I'm AKA, so I had my line sisters, but they weren't in class with me. They weren't taking the classes and exams and things like that with me. So I feel like at Jackson State, I would have had that community in my classes because you see people who look like you, and you can, and then having similar backgrounds too. Coming from JPS and things like that. Just that community, I realize it's just so important even as you get older in life, because you always need to make sure you have a great tribe with you, which tribe is more like the people who are really, really close to you, who can definitely, encourage you, and you can encourage them, they motivate you. So sometimes that is lacking when you're the minority.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because I think it's so important for these kids to start thinking about if they want to go to college, they need to find the best fit for them, not necessarily where your parents went, where your friends go. Ole Miss has a great civil engineering program. I know Jackson State has the urban planning undergraduate degree. Southern Miss has their construction management program that has turned out multi-billion-dollar construction guys. So anybody interested in civil engineering, there's multiple ways to get there, but you need to find the place that best fits you, whether that is an HBCU. I know Morgan State up in Baltimore has a world-renowned civil engineering program, as does Southern University down in Baton Rouge as well. So, if you want to do the HBCU route, that's great. You need to you can find a place there, and there's great organizations. I know you're really involved in NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. They have a great chapter at Mississippi State, and where I went, LSU as well, where they have a great engineering program. But that's just really what I want to emphasize is that, as kids are deciding their college decisions, whether it's engineering or not, find the place that best fits you. And I know you don't speak ill of Mississippi State by any stretch, but I hear a lot of people say that they could have made a better choice if they would have gone to a place that best fit their academic needs.
Yes, and that's definitely, like you said, doing your research and finding what's best for you. Even though we're talking about engineering, but sometimes I have friends who, were in nursing. So, and they went to Mississippi State. I love Mississippi State, but it was like, that's not the school really for nursing. So, like you said, just finding what's best for you and understanding that sometimes you might not, make everyone happy, family included, but just letting them know these are the reasons why you're picking a school that's the best fit for you, because you're the one who's going to school. You're the one, who has to be in the classes and doing the work.
Absolutely. Well, I do have some questions from the students, and I'll get to as many of these as I can. This first one's Jada Green. She's a senior, and she asked, "What are the steps to become an engineer in Mississippi?"
So, okay, the steps once you graduate from high school, you go to college, you have to go to a ABET accredited college that has that particular engineering program. And then once you graduate, so some things have changed, and I do probably need to touch up on it a little bit. But when I graduated, as far as you take a EI exam, which is an engineering intern exam, and it makes it seem like you're an intern, but you really are an engineer. But that's just the first test that you take and pass. And when I took it my senior year at Mississippi State. And then I had to do 4 years of experience to take my PE, which is my professional engineering exam. I know that has changed. I know the Mississippi Board of Engineers and Surveyors, they keep up with the standards. I think you don't have to do 4 years of experience anymore before you take the test. It's less. And also, I want to say that both tests are now computerized. So that's a plus also, not to show my age, but when I took it, it was like a standardized test. It was bubbling answers. It was not computerized. I know some people, they have different preferences when it comes to test taking, but yes, now they do offer it as a computerized, both the EI and the PE as a computerized test. And then once you do pass your PE exam to become a professional engineer, you do have to maintain your license with CLP's continuing learning programs every year. I want to say it's 15 or 30. Don't quote me, because Mississippi just changed their things where we did have to renew every year, but now we can renew every 2 years. So I think it's 15 hours per year, 30 hours for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too, because when you talked about intern hours, you said you did the internship here in Jackson. When you're in college, the academic side is obviously important, but getting that networking and those internships, student organizations, those are vital if you want to do any type of field that's going to require field hours, especially engineering. I encourage everybody, no matter where you go to school and no matter what you go for, find ways to get involved in that early.
Yes, and I know Mississippi State had a good program. It was a co-op program that actually they would match you with a company for a year. So you would
Wow.
maybe, the fall semester you would be at Mississippi State, the spring semester you'll be interning, and then summer you'll be back at Mississippi State, and maybe the fall semester you'll be back at the company. And then also look into, now that I'm with the federal government, learning about a lot of their internship programs. They have a lot of programs that focus on recent graduates and, after you graduate from college. So those are very good programs that kind of, guarantee you a path into the federal government. So those are things to look into. And just like you said, doing your research and realizing like, okay, this might be a company that I'll be interested in working on, or this industry, and finding out as much information as you can.
Absolutely. This is Cortez Maxwell. He's in ninth grade, and he asked, "What is some of the work that you've done as an engineer that may have seemed too hard at the time?"
Oh. I would say so when I first graduated from Mississippi State and I moved back here and started working, I took a project. It was more so like water resources or hydraulic engineering. So it was a city on the coast, and I basically with a couple of other engineers, we designed the the storm sewer, so the gravity storm sewer water system for that town. And I was just like, this is a lot. And you're thinking about like, I want to make sure that you size it right because we're talking about the coast. And traditionally in Mississippi, we do have quite a bit of like flash flooding and we have rain events that um, cause a lot of water to come in all at once. So you want to make sure the streets isn't flooded and people can still drive safely during a rain event. And I thought it was, like, oh my God, this is so much. And then once I got the hang of it and the more, failing forward and resizing and doing different iterations. And then we did at the time have a computer program that helped us. But also, I love technology. But one thing I like to tell people, if you put garbage in, you're getting garbage out. So even though we have these computer programs that help us in software, we have to make sure what we're putting in is the right information so we can get the right information out that actually helps us solve our problem. So yes, at the time I thought that was like, oh my God, this is so much. But once we did it, I was like, I just felt so accomplished. And I was like, yes, we did it. Like we made it happen. So
That's awesome. I just got two more. This is Bryson Stevens. He's in ninth grade. And he asked, what made you want to go to the military school before you went to Mississippi State?
so that was a little bit of, I would say, some pushing for with my family. And then I also was recruited. So in high school, I ran track. And the coach from the military academy, he some kind of way got my information. And then of course I had met the criteria with grades and things like that. And he came to Mississippi and recruited me. And I was like, okay, this seems interesting. Like, because I wasn't in JRTC or anything. I did have family members in the military, but it really just never kind of crossed my mind. I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna graduate from high school and I'm gonna become a civil engineer. That was my thing. Like, okay, I'm gonna be an engineer. Like, let me figure this out. I'm just gonna go to school. And so when that opportunity was presented, I was like, this would be very interesting. And it was far away. It was in New York. So that was another thing I did want to kind of get away from. Surprisingly, I wanted to get away from Mississippi at the moment. I always knew I would come back. So that military school provided me the opportunity to get away and experience new things. So yeah.
That's awesome. I just got one more, and this is interesting because we're going to have a lot of guests on this later on the semester. But this is Zarius Cooper. He's a senior, one of our football players, and he asked, "Do you ever deal with AI, and what role could AI have in the future of engineering?"
So we've had discussions with our upper leadership about AI. So I have not actually dealt with it personally, but we know that it is coming, especially with the federal agencies. And as many agencies that we deal with in different clients, we know that it's coming. So leadership is trying to, I guess, catch up in a sense so that we don't violate anyone's privacy or anything if we do use AI, but it's kind of like in the works at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much as always for joining us. This is such a great way to start our guests we're going to have throughout the year. Just a great local engineer, and it's just crazy how on fire you are for the field, and we really need our young people to consider it. So before we go, tell us why these kids, especially these young ladies, should really consider a career in engineering.
I would say because do it because you want to. I love being a Black woman engineer so much that I'm actually involved with our agency. We created a new group called Women in Construction. So
Wow.
there's a need for us to network, but especially this is a male dominated field. But one thing I can say that the males that I have encountered have been very helpful. But you do want to, again, representation matters. You want to see someone who looks like you and they can help, mentor you and get you where you're going. it is very interesting field. I think a lot of women might be intimidated sometimes when they see, oh, it's so many, it's men, or it's construction, things like that. But no, we're all equal. And honestly, not to toot our horns, but I would say that we're a little bit smarter.
Hey, I wouldn't disagree on that because I know I'm pretty dumb as it is. So again, we thank you so much for joining us, L. Quinn Braboy, civil engineer, project manager with GSA, right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
All right, see you soon.